Assalamu alaikum habibati. Today we're going to talk about how I got into medical school with extremely low A levels and 4 rejections before I actually got in. So this is my story. Enjoy. Basically this story starts back when I was conceived. My dad's a doctor, so since the day I was conceived, it was drilled in my ear that you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor. And in my culture, I'm Arab, you're either a doctor, an engineer, or a failure. So you don't have many options. So up in primary school, I studied a lot against my will. I did lots of work. I was a very ideal student. I knew what I was doing. I was smart, mashallah. Don't know what happened there. And then in year 7, my family decides to go back to Syria because all our family's in Syria. So my dad wanted to move back and live with his family, and my mum as well. So bear in mind at that point I couldn't speak Arabic. I could barely speak Arabic. I'd speak one Arabic word and then like 3 English words and then 1 Arabic word. Which was peak, trying to speak. Ooh, that rhymes. I need to stop waffling, So basically, I couldn't read Arabic, I couldn't write Arabic, barely spoke Arabic, I didn't know the culture, I didn't know any of that. Or we were just thrown into school. So obviously no school wanted to take us because we were like nothing. Finally one school took us, but it wasn't a very good school. They were more gassed that they had British students with them than anything. What's actually funny as well is here I'm called Syrian and over there I'm called British, so I just want somebody to accept me. Anyway, so in year 7 that was more of a year to like be able to learn to write, to read, to speak more than 2 words, and it went okay. And then in year 8 my brother and I reached a good enough level. He's a year older, so it was his year 9. But we reached a good enough level that we can go to like quite a decent school, and that year was for me, it was more as well evolving my Arabic, because it wasn't just speaking Arabic and that's it. You had to learn the biology in Arabic, the chemistry in Arabic, maths was okay, geography, history, and then in year 9 in Syria is the GCSEs that they have, and how they assess them is you have X amount of subjects. They add all the grades that you get together. So let's say you get maths was 60. I remember I got 57 out of 60. So that's 57 plus, let's say, I don't know, I got 50 out of 60. Add the 50, and then the max you can get is like 320. So and it's compared across the entire, every single person doing the GCSEs. So like 100,000 or however many students there are, and you get ranked accordingly. So I ended up doing pretty well. I think it was 320. I got roughly 263, I think, which was basically in the 83rd percentile, which was very, very good, especially since I didn't know the language 3 years prior. So that's in year 9. Between year 8, so year 8 to year 9 was the same school technically, but one of them was on the countryside of Damascus. They don't actually have countryside, it's just like dogs and mountains, and now it's bombs as well, but do you know what I mean? So we couldn't go to that school in year 8 anymore because it got bombed. So we ended up going to the same school but like a different. So the school had the same name, so it was like 2 schools with the same name, the same everything, just one's in Damascus, one's on the countryside. So we ended up going to the one inside of Damascus, and that's where I did my year 9s. Did really, really well. Got in the 83rd percentile roughly. So after that, the war in Syria got quite bad and it wasn't feasible to stay, so we ended up all coming back to the UK. And this is where it gets bad, because up until that point I was actually quite smart, I studied and all that stuff, but I say I studied and smart, but I was also very bad as well. Like I remember we had private teachers come teach us Arabic at home, and I made them cry, and I used to hide under the bed, and then I used to get beat up afterwards for doing that and wasting their time because they were like on hourly. Good memories. Anyway, so coming back to the UK, bear in mind that for the 3 years in Syria, I didn't speak English, and the English they teach in the school is equivalent to a year one English. It's such low level, so my confidence, my self-confidence, and everything was right, like non-existent. And I was very fat as well. Like, we're talking like titty fat, like fat. So in Syria that wasn't a problem being fat, because nobody ever, like, no matter how many, like, if anyone was to bully you, they'd never mock your weight. Like, it's just not something you get mocked for. Here in the UK that wasn't true, so I was very self-conscious, very shy. I could barely like, my English, I know what I'm trying to say, but I couldn't say it, if that makes sense. A bit like how I am now, except now I don't have a reason to. But you know what you want to say, but the words, it just takes extra time for them to come out your mouth, because I've just, like, I haven't spoken fluent English in so long. So in year 10 and 11, obviously we have GCSEs. I didn't do that good. I got like 1 A star, distinction A, and then the rest were B's, so maybe like 1 or 2 C's. But I managed to get into the college that I wanted. Again, yes, I could speak the English, but I was still very self-conscious, very shy, like a weak personality sort of thing. And I didn't do well in my A-levels at all. To the point, my predictors were high because my dad gassed me too much. And I could have achieved them, I just never studied, I never tried, I never paid attention in class, I couldn't be bothered. And one of my reasonings for that was that during school life, we all like study till year 6, and then year 7, 8 and 9 is sort of like chilled, you just mess about, and then you have GCSEs, college, uni. But for me, my 7, 8 and 9, I had to study more than I've studied in my entire life, because I had to learn a brand new language, a different curriculum, in a different language, and different culture, and then come back here and then try and make myself equal back to the British students. And so it was like so much, it was just non-stop. I did QMon as well. QMon was sick. I hated it at the time, but my maths was like bang, 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 sick. I used to cheat all the time. Because it was like multiplication, so I just have a massive poster of multiplications, and I used to copy the answers, but then I somehow through that managed to learn it all, and I could answer it in like record speed. So anyway, A-levels, I did so bad. My teachers, they knew I wanted to do med, but they were like, realistically, Omar, we think you should do something else. I just felt like in school, in college, they just want to get rid of you. It's like, yeah, just go apply for this, just get into uni, just go do this subject. My A-levels, I got A in Arabic, C in maths, C in biology, D in chemistry. I hate chemistry, like H2O, CO2, I hate that. And C in EPQ. My EPQ, I started that 2 months before the deadline. I didn't realise you could start it in first year. And then I was like, you know what could help me? I'm glad I did, because that low-key helped me. So after college, obviously rubbish grades. I had 0 offers. I applied biomedical sciences, because let's be realistic, I wasn't going to apply med. Anyway, so I applied biological sciences. I got rejected from every uni I applied to. No, I actually got offers from every uni, and then when I got my grades, they rejected me. And I remember ringing like 30, 40 universities to take me, just to do some sort of biological sciences. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but like the fact that medicine was just drilled into me, it put me off. Like, that's why I never had motivation to study, because it was just so off-putting. Like, imagine someone telling you to do this and this and this and this. Like, you get fed up, you don't want to do it anymore. So I ended up calling 30, 40 universities, and there was one university that I didn't want to call, and that was Leicester, because my brother was at Leicester, and I was like, I want to go to a different city, you know what I mean, like grow and be myself and whatever. I didn't even have a self back then. But then I literally ran out of options. I rang Leicester, and they were like, yeah, we'll take you on. Yeah, that was very emotional, because I genuinely thought I was not going to get to uni. So I get to Leicester, my brother's already in Leicester, he did an extra year, so he basically graduated the same, and we were in the same year, if that makes sense. And Leicester, the first 2 years, complete mess about. Like, my attendance was below 50%. My grades in first year grades don't count towards your degree, but my grades were 40 is a pass. So if you don't know, 40 you get a pass, 50 is a low second class honours, 50-60, so, and then 50-60 is low second class honours, 60 to 70 is an upper second class honours, which is pretty decent, and then 70 and above is a first class honours, which is the highest honours you can get. I got 40. So if you graduate with a pass or 40s, you might as well have not done a degree. You might as well just stayed home. And it wasn't something to be proud of. I never studied. I never went to lectures. I just messed about. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I was just living to mess about. And in second year, that counts. That counted towards 15% of my final grade. Again, same thing. My attendance below 0. Didn't attend any lectures. Didn't revise. Didn't study. Didn't even watch the recordings of lectures. In my summer exams, in my January exams actually, I got 50s, like 51, 52, 49, stuff like that. And I remember in my second term of second year, I was telling my personal tutor, we had a meeting, and basically your personal tutor is just somebody who's responsible, who you're their responsibility in a sense, academically, and if you need to talk and stuff like that. So I was like, I want to do med, and she was like, okay, let's just look at your grades. She didn't say anything. She said, let's look at your grades. And then she looked at my grades and she was like, I don't think medicine is the best choice. Are you trying to do medicine because your parents want you to do medicine or because you want to do medicine? At the time, I didn't know the answer. I was like, I just want to do medicine. And she was like, realistically, that's not going to happen. I really urge you to consider to do something else, to think of a different career path. And at that point, I was like, oh, damn. Because up until that point, it was always like, you're going to do med, you're going to do med, you're going to do med. But then at that point, it hit me like, I can't do med. My grades are so bad, I can't do anything really. Like med or not, like with 50s, you can't do anything. Low 40s, etc., you can't do anything. So that was like a big, like, boom. You know, like a big KO to me. And I was like, no, I beg, I'm going to try. She was like, I really do not encourage you to try. I encourage you to look at something else, which was fair enough. But to me, it made me like annoyed. It made me angry that she didn't believe in me. But thinking back, it made sense. She didn't believe in me but in my final exams for second year, 2 weeks before the exam, I was like, you know what, I'm a patternist. I'm gonna study. I'm gonna get the highest grades. I didn't. I did study for the first time in my life since I was in Syria, but I didn't get that high grades. I got high 50s, so lower second class honours. So 59%, 58%, 57%, stuff like that. It wasn't enough. You need at least a 2-1, which is an upper second class, which is between 60 and 70%, to get into med, to have a chance to apply for med. I didn't have that, and I told my personal tutor in my final year at the beginning, I'm going to add you as my referee, so my reference for my UCAT application. Please waff it. Just waff it. And trust me, and like, I lose nothing from trying. She was like, okay, fine. She didn't believe in me, but she was just like, like when a kid wants something and you're like, yeah, go get it. And it's like, just to get, or like when you're playing with your little brother. I don't have a little brother. When you're playing with your little sibling on like the PS4, you're playing with yourself and they want to play, so you give them a controller without actually plugging it in. That's what it sort of was like. She was like, yeah, whatever, I'll write you a reference and that's it. So luckily I didn't have exams in January for my final year, but I did have my dissertation. So I just like smacked that. At the first term, my routine wasn't good, but I managed to get by with it. And my dissertation was due in January. So at that point, I had applied to 4 universities for medicine. Leicester, because I was told, as a Leicester grad, or soon to be grad, Leicester will 100% give you an interview just because you're a Leicester student. I was like, bless, I'll add that. Newcastle, my UCAT was... Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention my UCAT. So my UCAT over the summer, I gave myself 4 weeks to study, ended up going on holiday for 3 weeks, so I didn't actually study on holiday, surprise. So I had 1 week to study for UCAT, and despite that 1 week, I actually did study, and I did okay. I got 680 average in 2019, so it wasn't that bad. It was okay. And then in my third year, I was like, okay, calm, let's pattern this. I applied Leicester. I was told to apply Leicester. I was like, as a soon-to-be Leicester grad, they will give you an interview 100%, just because you're a Leicester grad. They know the curriculum and stuff like that. That was all false. I'll come to that. I applied Newcastle because it was close to home, but I'll talk about that in a second. I applied Anglia Ruskin and Southampton. So with Leicester, I told my personal tutor, and I got rejected straight up from Leicester. I was like, I was told to apply to Leicester by like not Leicester staff, but someone almost representing them. And she was like, yeah, they probably looked at your attendance and your previous grades, in your degree, and they just outright rejected you. I was like, fair enough. I was annoyed because it was a waste. Like, had I known that, I just wouldn't have applied there. But it is what it is. So I got rejected from there. Newcastle. So I knew Newcastle was a UCAT. Like, if you don't know, the entire interview process is based off UCAT. So the higher the UCAT, the more likely you're gonna get an interview. And then there's like a cut-off point. Obviously 680 isn't that bad, but comparison to most other students, it was trash. So Newcastle just rejected me like that. Rude. That's the second time they reject me, you know. I have a personal vendetta, personal agenda with Newcastle. They rejected me twice now. Rude. Southampton, they didn't send me anything till like March. They were just like, yeah, we reject you. I was like, safe. And Anglia Ruskin was interesting. So I submitted my dissertation in January. Anglia Ruskin gave me an interview like the day after I submitted my dissertation. Dissertation is a 10,000 word text with like bare research and conclusions and waffle. So it actually is mainly waffle, I'm not even gonna lie. You just waffle 10k words. So if you ever done a degree, you'd know, you just waffle. So I hadn't slept for 3 days. I hadn't eaten for 3 days because the deadline was coming up for my dissertation, and I finally submit my dissertation at 4 p.m. I then had my interview the next day at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. I had to be up at 5 a.m. to get a 6 a.m. train. I hadn't booked my train. I didn't even know where Anglia Ruskin was, the med school. I've never been to the south. I had no clue where any of that is. So I submitted my days. I didn't really have time to eat. Maybe I had like a takeout or something. Didn't really sleep. I booked a train for 6 a.m. I woke up at 5 on like zero sleep. Like, you know when you're meant to prepare, I didn't. Like, I didn't have time. So on the train I had like this UCAT book to read, not UCAT, interview book, sorry, to read on the train. Was it helpful? Fairly, I guess, but it's like that thick, and I read like a page on the train. I also wore like a shirt that needed cufflinks, but I didn't have cufflinks, so I did some ghetto, like some plastic, just tied it a knot in there to hold my shirt together. Damn, I had it rough. So I went to Anglia Ruskin, had the interview, came back home to Leicester, had like my first sleep, and I ate the next day and stuff like that. So with Anglia Ruskin, they put me on the reserve list. I was 8th on the reserve list, which isn't bad. And I thought it was like, but then I know friends that were 50th on the reserve list. So I was like, 8th is fairly good. And in the past, Anglia Ruskin's always gone into clearing, which means chances are if you're 8th, you will get a position. More on that in a minute. So with my final term at uni, I had all my exams for the entire year in summer, and I had all my assessments now, and I banged it out differently. I smashed it so hard. I had this mad program where I'd go to bed at 10, I'd wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I'd go to the gym for an hour, I'd go to the library, I'd go home at 9, sleep at 10. Every single day, I'd wake up at 5:30, gym, library, home, sleep. That was my life. All the way up until the pandemic and lockdown happened and the library was shut. But that was my life. And I went from being a student that had zero attendance, no idea about the lectures, no idea about assessments until the day before, to somebody whose students would come to me for answers, who I was always on top of my work, always ahead. And we had 2 to 3 assessments a week in my final term, like exams, essays, presentations. Like, it was mad. It was so hectic, but I loved it because to be fair as well, I hate biochem and molecular stuff. I hate that with a passion. My passion is hating that. And and with my final year, it was actually, we had a lot of like pathophysiology, so diseases, we had cancer, we had understanding diseases, what else did we have? Human behavior, stuff like that was actually interesting, and so I enjoyed studying it. So I bossed that. That was sick up until then. And then before my exam, I studied and I revised. I knew, because my average for the second year was 52.5%, I knew getting a first is impossible. So I was like, I'm just going to get as high as I can and hopefully get a 2-1. It might have been too late, I don't know. But I tried so hard. I've never tried for something more in my life. Like, for real, that I tried so hard for that. And exams came and I was ready and I answered them. Obviously the pandemic, the first lockdown was such a nightmare. it was such a surprise. Like, it wasn't a good time. It wasn't the best time. I had some friends that were still in Leicester, which was quite good. I basically lived with them. I did live with them. Whoa. If you're a Fed and you're watching this, I did live with them. I was not breaking the law. No, I'm being serious now. I did not break the law. I did live with them. I moved in with them basically before the lockdown happened. So I was in their bubble, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I can't remember what I was saying. Anyway, yeah. So I banged that out. The pandemic was just hit me by surprise. I didn't get to see anybody. It was my final year. We didn't have a proper like celebration. Ramadan was all messed up. Not the month, but like we had plans and it was all ruined.
Oh man, you're just ruining it. Look at my lips. You're ruining it.
But also my third year, I used it as time to like grow as a person. I read more like self-help books. Learned more about like social media marketing, business, stuff like that I'm interested in, and I just learned more about myself and how to improve as a person, become a better person. So third year was like a very good year for me from that aspect. My social life was okay at that point, it was decent. But yeah, so obviously I went home for my exams. They were all online, and we get my grade a few weeks later, and for me, I would have been grateful just for a 2-1 because how hard it would have been to jump from 52.5% just to a low 2-1 to 60%. That's a massive 8% you're jumping. That's in 1 year. It's quite a jump. My grades came and I checked the website and it said Omar Boarage, first class honours. I refreshed the page at least 50 times. And every time it would refresh, it would say first class honours. I emailed the biological sciences. I forgot to say I did medical physiology at uni, by the way, and I refreshed it and I emailed them and they were like, yes, here's a digital photo of your like official certification, and I got a first class honours, and I don't know how I felt. That was mad. I don't know how I felt. I can't, like, it was mad. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting like a low 2-1, at most a medium 2-1, but I got a first. And I remember going to my parents and pretending to be sad, like grades came out, and that they were like, oh, what did you get? And I was like, a first. And my mum started crying. My dad smiled and said, well done, now go revise for your UCAT, because I had my UCAT exam. And that was funny. And then my mum hugged me, and then my dad actually did hug me, but he was like, cool, go revise now, bye. I was like, sick. You know, it's not just like 3 years of my life, 36k debt, but cool, you got first, very nice, now go study. So that was mad. That was really mad. Like I have goosebumps. I'm so hot, but I have goosebumps. So I got that, and obviously I didn't have an offer. I had a reserve list for Anglia Ruskin, but St George's went into early clearing because graduates and I believe the IB have their grades. So I applied. They gave me an interview, and they were like, "We want you." St George's. I was like, "Oh, finally somebody wants me." Joke. But they didn't tell me when. They said either 2020 or 2021 entry. I was hoping it was 2020. And then the whole A-level thing came out, and people getting predicted grades and all that stuff. And at that point, official clearing, St George's didn't open, Anglia Ruskin didn't open. Anglia Ruskin apologised and said, you were on the reserve list, but we're over capacity, we don't have room for you. So that was an outright rejection. St George's said, we still want you, but we're full capacity. We want you in 2021. I was like, damn, like I have a gap year now. I have to redo my UCAT, possibly do GAMSAT. I wasn't happy. My brother, he got into uni, He got into med school straight up, got an interview, got an offer, mashallah. But with me, I got rejected, and then I got 2021 entry, so the third entry into St. George's. And it was sad, but during clearing, I applied to Lincoln Medical School as well. I didn't even know they had a medical school, but they did. So they gave me an interview, and they put me on the waiting list because they couldn't give out offers because they also exceeded capacity. So they were like, Omar, in the email it said like, oh, Omar, you ranked very highly in the interviews, so you're highly in the waiting list, you're quite high up, but we can't offer you anything. And then by the end of the week they were like, sorry, we're also at full capacity, we can't offer you a place. And that made me really sad. I had to find a job, I had to do like a million things. I got rejected again. I've lost count, that's 5 medical schools that rejected me. But then, so term starts on Monday. On the Wednesday I checked my emails, and St. George's has sent me an email saying, Omar, we can now offer you a place for 2020. Can you start Monday in 4 days? I was like, oh my days. I was so gassed. So gassed. They were like, Omar, you can start. I was like, are you mad? Of course I accept. I started doing my DBS, my everything, accommodation, transport, all that stuff. I had 4 days to get down to London. I live on the opposite side of the country, by the way. Basically near Iceland. Or is it Greenland? No, Iceland. So I got gassed for that because I had planned to do the UCAT a week after. So I cancelled that, got my refund, didn't have to study. I wasn't even studying for it because my motivation was so low. And thank God, alhamdulillah, they gave me an offer. And the next day my dad was like, oh Omar, since St. George's had the extra place, email Lincoln Medical School and see if they have an extra place. I was mocking it. I was like, that's just not how they work. That's not how medical schools work. You can't just email them and they'll give you an offer. They'll be like, oh okay, he emailed, so we give him offer now. I was like, that's just not gonna work. So I was just gonna go to my room, but then I have this, like, my parents come before everything, and I just felt bad for not listening to him. I don't say no to my parents. They're like the most precious thing to me. So I just wrote in 2 minutes. I wrote an email saying, hi, I heard some medical schools have places. Is Lincoln one of them? So I sent that on Thursday morning, and every hour my dad asked me, have they replied? I was like, Dad, they're not going to reply. Like, let's be realistic, they're just not going to reply. They get hundreds of emails every single day. It's not going to happen. They're over capacity. They already rejected me outright. And at that point I was still preparing for St. George's. Then at 8 p.m. I get a call from a member of staff at Lincoln Medical School. Well, I get a call from a no-caller ID at 8 o'clock in the evening. I answer and they're like, hello, how are you? Is this Omar? I was like, yes. They were like, oh, you wrote an email to my colleague this morning about you asking if there's any places. I was like, oh, brilliant. Lincoln Medical School ring me to decline me, but at least, hey, they rejected me on the phone as opposed to over text or email. So that was cute. And she goes, do you want to start on Monday? This is on Thursday. She said, do you want to start on Monday? I was like, Monday? You and me? That me? Uma? She was like, yeah. I was like, is this a prank? She was like, no, it's not a prank. I was like, you're asking me in Lincoln Medical School to start medicine on a Monday? She was like, yeah. Do you want to come? I was like, of course I want to do. She was like, how do you feel? She says, how do you feel? I said, blessed. And at that point in the back of my mind, it was still a prank. I told her, can you email me confirmation just as evidence? She was like, yeah, I'll do that. 30 minutes later, the confirmation came through. I go upstairs. All my family were in my parents' room because my brother was packing. And my dad, they were all just talking among themselves. And as soon as I walked to the room, my dad just looks at me. And he's like, that was Lincoln, wasn't it? I was like, yeah. He was like, my God, I'm getting goosebumps. He was like, they just gave you an offer, didn't they? I was like, yeah. And at that point, the house just went into chaos. My mum was screaming, my sister was shouting, I swear my brother was going, and my dad was like, cool. and then went to the bathroom. No, he actually gave me a hug, and his eyes got a bit teary. It was crazy because London was great and awesome, and I always wanted to live in London. The issue with it is I would save an extra around 15k over the 3 years just on accommodation, and as a graduate I don't get the loan I get before. I don't get a tuition loan, so I have to self-fund everywhere. That's why I work. I have to self-fund my degree. I get a maintenance loan and that's it, and I get the minimum one as well. But so financially it would have been a better choice to come Lincoln than St. George's. So starting from Friday, I had one day where staff are open, the med schools are open, to decline and retract my offer from my application from St. George's and apply to Lincoln Medical School and book accommodation and somehow get there before Monday, when we started. So yeah, this year has been such a blessing, and it was crazy. So now I'm at Lincoln Medical School, which turns out was actually run by University of Nottingham, so my degree will actually say University of Nottingham, not Lincoln Medical School, which is quite interesting. We use their curriculum and stuff because Lincoln Medical School is a new uni. But yeah, this year has been a blessing. For me it was never there. Like my brother, for example, God bless him, he out of college, straight to uni, from uni, applied med, got in straight up. For me, out of college, no offers. Rank 30, 40 universities, got an offer. Up and down in uni. He was like straight up like a high achiever at uni. Me, I was like this. I was like swimming like this. Like, have you ever seen a swim that's disabled? A swim? Have you seen a swim that's disabled? Have you ever seen a fish that's disabled trying to swim and it goes like this? That's what I was in my first two years at uni. And I finally put my head down and I did work, and I still got rejected from med schools. And then during clearing at the last minute, literally the last minute, I get an offer and I come to med school. It was never easy. It was very up and down, up and down, up and down for me. Some people it was very just up, 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 but for me it was very up and down. That's why I appreciate what I have so much. That's why I'm so grateful for everything I have. I'm grateful to the people around me, grateful to my family, most of all grateful for God. It brought me closer to God as well, you know, like, because at times of nothingness there's only one that you turn to, and that's God, and that made me closer. I never would have predicted this would happen ever, but it did, and here we are. So I'm so grateful for everything, alhamdulillah. It was such a roller coaster, but I'm proud of everything. I'm so happy with my life. So yeah, this is how I made it to med school. Make sure you like. By the way, you don't even have to subscribe. I don't mind if you don't want to subscribe, but a like would cost you nothing, and that would mean so much to me, just for the YouTube algorithm. So you don't even subscribe if you don't want to, but I'd appreciate a like, especially if you made it this far. But yeah, till next time, peace.